Is this fucking thing on?
You know, I eat extra sharp. That's what I eat. You know, I eat extra sharp, extra sharp, extra sharp, extra sharp, extra sharp, extra sharp, extra sharp. That's what I eat.
So notice something. I defended him on his bad joke because I have standards and I have principles.
So, originally, the idea had come up of me debating somebody else on this topic, and that didn't end up happening. The idea had come up of me debating somebody else on this topic, and that didn't end up happening. The idea had come up of me debating somebody else on this topic, and that didn't end up happening. The idea had come up of... So, and this originally, never mind. Originally, the idea had come up of
dumb people, liberal people, dumb people, liberal people,
but
dumb people, liberal people,
originally,
dumb people, liberal people, dumb people, liberal people, dumb people, liberal people, dumb 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 people, liberal people, dumb people, liberal people.
Originally, the idea had come up of somebody else on this topic, and that didn't end up happening. But
dumb people, liberal people, dumb people, liberal people.
Early in the morning, they went to the table with the black robe, the black shield, and they pulled out the votes.
They felt pretty comfortable after day 2.
$7 million for reef fish management, $25 million to combat Asian carp, $2.5 million to count the number of amberjack fish in the Gulf of Mexico.
So, originally, the idea had come up of me debating somebody else on this topic, and that didn't end up happening. But, you know, that...
Eight months after his alleged meeting with the Burmese executives. So this Burmese, they say, pronounce it Burmese, a real beautiful company.
No good, really bad for you. No good, no good, no good, really bad for you.
You know, the truth of the matter is that when you look at some of my policies, in a lot of ways, Richard Nixon was more liberal than I was.
Where it should have stopped is at the deal standpoint when they thought about it.
They felt pretty comfortable after day 2.
Is this fucking thing on? How the hell am I supposed to tell if this fucking thing is on? Like, what information is there that can provide to me an accurate summary of whether or not this fucking thing is on? Like, I have no clue. I have no idea. I'm clueless. I'm without a clue. No, not even, like, again, like, I want to emphasize, I'm clueless. I have not a single clue if this thing is on. So I'm going to go ahead and do my live show, and I'm just going to, I'm going to fucking hope that it's on, because it might not be. So we'll find out. Welcome, folks. Welcome to Above It Motherfucking All. Today, we have a very good program for y'all. So there's going to be 2 major aspects of today's episodic installation of Above It All. Part 1, I will be discussing day 100 of the Andrew Brown protests in Elizabeth City. And then 2, I will be watching the entire debate between David Feldman and Ben Burgess on January 6th. I watched the first 10 minutes of it, and it was so hilarious and so, like, cringy from Ben Burgess that I was like, you know what? I asked a couple people, hey, does this sound good? They all told me, all right, let's just watch the full fucking debate on stream. So it's about I think like 70 minutes long. I don't know if like they talk about like, you know, their life or whatever at other points, but you know, I'll stop when the debate ends. But it gets really funny, and so get ready for that if you missed it. You know, as you can see, I'm ready. I'm caffeinated. I have a caffeine intake of a lot. I've got a lot of caffeine. And I'm caffeinated. I don't even know what else needs to even be said at this point, because of my caffeine intake. Like, you know, so I want to apologize for my caffeine intake yesterday. You know, maybe some people pointed out, and I'm pretty sure they were joking, but some people pointed out that I was speaking a lot yesterday. Obviously, that's not true. But what is true is that I'm doing a live show today, and it's happening, and that's what's true. So let's get into that. So let me set up my materials here. I've got some materials, and I'm setting them up. So let's discuss the materials. Covfefe overdose. Yes, I overdosed on Covfefe yesterday, as well as a white Monster, because that's the kind of person I am. I drink white Monster on live streams. So that's what's happening. Yesterday's show was awesome. Yeah, I'm definitely going to try to get Erin on the show more if she wants. But, you know, that's obviously, you know, maybe I should stop drinking Monster when I have guests on. It may have been into... Catherine, I have to tell you. Yesterday, there was this guy in the chat that was talking about, like, how, like, were they insinuating I was reading a teleprompter? Because I kept, like, looking over there. I was looking at the chat room. Like, that's called reading the chat on a live stream. But I think they were saying I was reading a teleprompter. And, Catherine, I swear to God, when you responded in, like whatever trip you're in, I hope it ends soon or whatever, I'll see you. I literally could not stop myself from laughing. And so for the rest, it was extremely funny. And every time I saw them post in the chat, I would remember your chat message and start laughing. So if you remember at all, like, when Erin was speaking at random points, I just tried to not laugh. It was because of the chat. And eventually I just turned the chat off. I was just like, I can't handle this right now. I don't want to be rude and laugh while someone else was talking about fascism or something. So I just, like, I minimized the chat for, like, the last half hour of the stream because it was too fucking hilarious for me. Like, that guy was on something, man. It was great. I loved it. God damn. That was so funny. And I really hope that they had a good trip. I mean, for real. But anyway, let's get into the news, folks. Tokyo ship, motherfucker. Alright, let's get into the news. So, yesterday was day 100 of protesting for Andrew Brown Jr. a man who was shot and killed by the Pasquotank County Sheriff's Department on April 21st, 2021. He is a father of 7. He was unarmed, and when he was executed, he, in the back of the head, mind you, he was shot in the back of the head. His hands were on the steering wheel in his vehicle, and the vehicle was driving at around 2 miles per hour. And their excuse for killing him is, he was in a car. Well, if that's the case, why don't you kill everyone who drives cars? It doesn't make any sense to me. So this was day 100 of the protests. I have attended the protests every single day except for day 72. And I have to say that I'm very impressed by such a, again, I want to reiterate that such a small city of less than 20,000 people being capable of having a, consecutive demonstration, having consecutive demonstrations 100 days in a row is impressive. It is a feat to behold, and it is something that is historical. This is something that will be remembered. This is a protest signifier. This is a marker. And this is something that people not only in North Carolina are talking about. This is something that people all across the country and all across the world are talking about. And again, I just want to say it is incredible to, again, bear witness to such a monumental task and a feat that is like no other. We had a really angry woman in a car here who was being very interesting. And so what we did was we decided to walk on the sidewalks while people drove down the main roads in Elizabeth City. And that way they could hear us as we chant for justice and say his name. As you can see, we had a large amount of people on both sides of the sidewalk. We had megaphones on both sides of the sidewalk. And we marched down to the CVS on Eringhouse Street. And as you can see, we're marching down. And then we marched down, then it's in the past tense. And we marched down to Eringhouse. That's a 7-second video. And that's a 1-minute video. And so then we got on the side of the CVS and we marched to what is now a newly placed Black Lives Matter billboard on Eringhouse Street. This is, again, I want to say the most populous street. That is to say, it has the highest amount of car traffic out of any street in Elizabeth City. This is where all the chain restaurants are. This is where all that stuff is. And so people spoke there at the Black Lives Matter billboard. And then we marched back downtown. And then we took the streets. As we're marching back downtown, we took the sidewalks on the way up, let our voices be known, and then we decided, you know what? Traffic schmaffic. We're taking the motherfucking streets. So we took the streets, and, again, it was an incredible march. After the march, there were, festivities, that is to say, music, food being served. I was offered several plates of chicken, and I had to tell, 6 or 7 different people I'm a vegetarian, but they kept asking. And then they asked, oh, but we have fish. And then I said, that's also, I'm not, So, shout outs to Elizabeth City for having no vegetarian options. I appreciate it, but I understand I'm in the minority here. And so, again, it was an incredible moment. A lot of people gave very good speeches at the press conferences, and it was great to see the community coming together for such a monumental occasion, such as 100 straight days of justice. And so, again, I've been there since day 1. I missed day 72 because I had another protest-related thing I had to do. And so, it's something I could not film, unfortunately. But either way, I'm down to go to another 100 days. Today will be 101, and I'm down to do another video in 99 days from now on day 200. And so it's just a matter of seeing if this sustained effort can be, again, sustained. I know I'm being redundant using the same word twice. I hate doing that, but we'll see how it goes. And again, as we chant in the streets, we ain't going nowhere. And I think people are finally realizing that 100 days in, this is just a part of life now in Elizabeth City. You're going to see protesters all over the city at any given time, at any random times throughout the day. You're going to have to hear his name, and his name is Andrew Brown. And again, he was a father of 7 children, And, you know, he did not deserve to be shot in the back of the head while in a vehicle that was barely moving. And police, again, I wanted to also reiterate, the sheriff's department got a raise. They voted, the county commissioners voted to give more money to the sheriff's department for what they did. This is a racket, folks. The Elizabeth City government, the Pasquotank County government, more specifically, I should say, is a criminal syndicate. Elizabeth City is being held hostage by organized militias and violent criminals known as the Pasquotank County Sheriff's Department. And at some point, we have to free the hostages, and that's what we're trying to do here. So 100 days in, an incredible moment, an incredible movement, and I would like to say we're only just beginning. That's my hope. That's my desire. But, you know, we'll see how the things go. We'll see how things develop. Another thing I want to mention is, I did not get footage of this, but the senior citizens of Elizabeth City decided to do a sit-in in the Pasquotank County Sheriff's Department building, where the district attorney's office is also located. They sat in there and made their presence known from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m., and then got ready for the marching and the press conferences for day 100. And they are going to be doing sit-ins every Thursday from 9 to 4, so basically all operating hours. The senior citizens of Elizabeth City are going to be occupying the lobby of the Pasquotank County Sheriff's Department, and they are also not going anywhere. And then after they're finished the sit-in, what they're going to do, guess what, is they're going to march through the streets, and we're going to make our voices known. Because, again, this is not something anyone should be able to get away with. Taking another human life is the worst possible thing you could possibly do, especially when it's for nothing, absolutely nothing. And so, again, I'm very proud of everyone in Elizabeth City for standing up, even if you've only marched a day, even if you've only marched 10 days, even if you've only marched 20 days, etc. It doesn't matter how often you're out there. The only thing that matters is that you keep your eyes on the prize, and that is justice for Andrew Brown, and to make sure that nothing like this ever happens again. We need to remove Tommy Wooten from the sheriff's department. We need to remove the killer cops from society. They need to be in jail. If I killed someone in cold blood in the back of the head, you know what would happen? I would be in jail in less than 12 hours. Somehow, we know who killed Andrew Brown, and they're also still running around with guns. That's bizarre, and it's ludicrous, and it should not happen. And so we are not going to stop until the things that led to Andrew Brown's murder never happen again, and Andrew Brown's killers get brought to justice. So 100 days in, folks. Again, incredible. How's everyone doing? All right, folks. So now that I've got the serious work out of the way, it's time for the ultra serious work. So, nervous. You're nervous, Matt. I know you have friends. I know you have multiple friends. Hey, Raymond, play more Doom. I've got a lot going on right now, but I will take your note, and I'm fielding it to my secretary, and we will work on a response. How is Max? Max is doing pretty good. He had diarrhea the other day, but he's been fine ever since. His poops are normal. He's laying down behind me, and he's woofing it up. He's being very dog-like. You might not know this, but Max has 4 paws, and so, with that being said, he's a very precious creature, and I love him. But there you go. So we're going to get into the debate. That's right, folks. There was another debate that happened. And so let me open this up before I do my opening monologue here. All right.
Result in
Getting this set up, folks. This is I'm producing right now. I do not have a producer. I know a lot of shows out there, they have producers. I am not one of those people that has producers. I don't produce. Well, I do produce, and I don't produce producers because I am the producer. And so that's important to note.
Yeah, I think he was. Or something.
What's
Really live and die based thematic. What is your take out on the...
Okay. All right, folks. Put your paws up for Max the dog. God bless. So happy Max is okay. God damn. There is a flying creature in my room. Wow. All right. So this is the world that we're living in. Okay. Whew. Flying spider, it's evolved. I hope to God that's not the case. Max needs his own show. Maybe I'll do a Max the Dog spinoff. All right, folks. So Ben Burgess has been going on a cringe tour. As I said, this is really interesting because what started a lot of this recent cringe tour with Ben Burgess is me using the term cringe tour. Ben Burgess exchanged direct messages with myself. I will not be showing those direct messages because I care about people. And he took high offense with my terminology of cringe tour. Now, again, I want to give you all more of a recap here, real quick. I won't go as in-depth as I did yesterday. But Ben Burgess made a bunch of very, very bizarre tweets, basically engaging in historical revisionism when it comes to January 6th, comparing the atrocities of January 6th to Black Lives Matter demonstrations in the George Floyd uprising of 2020, and doing a lot of other very curious things in regards to making sure people don't think January 6th is that big of a deal. And I referred to his tweets. He's also been going on Glenn Greenwald's show and like having him on his show and basically echoing what Glenn Greenwald has to say, which Glenn Greenwald is a transphobic, biphobic, right-wing hack. And he has been also participating in the downplaying of January 6th. And so I made a video, I think it was like 2 months ago now, saying, hey, I like Ben Burgess. I respect Ben Burgess. I've got one of his books, actually. I've got it within arm's reach. It's on the floor, of course, but it's in arm's reach. I am not a hater of Ben Burgess. I have read one of his books. So I want to be very clear. This is not coming from a place of hatred. This is not coming from anything like that. This is only coming from a place of concern. What is going on with Ben Burgess? So anyway, I made a video about his tweet threads, and I said he seems to be going on a cringe tour. And then people said I should debate Ben Burgess. I want to be very clear. My, quote, challenge video was not a challenge video. It was just a video about Ben Burgess. And people wanted me to debate him and wanted him to debate me. So Ben Burgess said he was very offended by me saying, quote, dumb as a shitfuck. And he also said, quote, cringe tour was a highly offensive thing. Well, fast forward 2 months later, and Ben Burgess is going on quite the tour. So yesterday, he, after bailing a debate with me, invited on, just so happens to be, another trans YouTuber who he had no idea of their opinions in any capacity, and then was even surprised when she basically responded with actually very, very coherent and very well thought out, and also very well sourced information on the history of fascism and how January 6th is a big deal. Ben Burgess lost that debate 2 days ago, and then he decided to continue his cringe tour by going on David Feldman's show and having the same conversation. And now, again, I want to say, I like David Feldman, I like Ben Burgess. I want to be very clear about that. I am not coming from a place of hate. I want Ben Burgess to realize how wrong he is so that he stops using his platform to spread misinformation and horrible takes. Do I think Ben Burgess is do I think he's evil? Do I think he's nefarious? Do I think he's a Nazi infiltrator? No. I think he's obsessed with granular minutia of detailed and definition and defining certain words, that he's lost the plot. He has missed the forest for the trees, and this guy needs to be reoriented. And so this debate I watched the first 5 to 10 minutes of, and then I asked a couple people, should I just do the whole thing on stream? So I'm going to watch as much of this debate as I can stomach. We'll see how long it takes. I know it's about 70 minutes long. So let's begin. David Feldman and Ben Burgess discuss January 6th. This is the title. Was the insurrection just a riot? Professor Ben Burgess comes on. Let's watch.
The internet debating the insurrection. What is your take on the insurrection? Are you part of the dirtbag left who trivializes the insurrection? Are you somebody who says, yeah, it was bad, but a lot of bad things happened? Why are you blowing this out of proportion? Are you one of those?
I just gotta say, the very start of this debate is amazing. It's amazing. David Feldman's show is 7 hours, but the debate is just this segment at the bottom. Then he brings on other guests. Are you one of those dirtbag leftists who says it's not a big deal? You can tell that Ben Burgess is upset by that. You can look at his face, and it's just
those people.
Am I listening to a recording of myself? I mean, this is wow. Was it? That's.
Are you one of those people who says it's only important because it happened to Congress? Suddenly, something happens to Congress, and we have to put everything on the back burner and get to the bottom of this. But who cares? It's just Congress. Are you one of those people?
No, I don't actually know that there are any of those people. But what I think is that it's certainly a disturbing event. Anytime, I mean, it's a political riot. I mean, that's just disturbing to start out with. You're introducing violence, into politics. The fact.
So again, he starts off by downplaying it, saying it's not an insurrection. It's a, quote, political riot. Now, what is a political riot? What is a riot? What are these words meaning? Now, a riot is typically used to describe left-wing and, say, Black Lives Matter demonstrations to say, oh, look how unruly they are. They broke a window. Rioters and looters roaming the streets, right? This is one of the only times in recent history that the term riot has been so fiercely tried to be applied to the Capitol insurrection. Now, again, do I think using the term riot is wrong? No. I use the term riot frequently. I actually interchange my vernacular here. I say insurrection attempt, coup attempt, riot. All those words are accurate. But Ben Burgess wants to focus on the word riot. And later in this debate, the very little that I watched, he also tried to compare the violence of January 6th and the motivations of January 6th to that of the Black Lives Matter demonstrations in the George Floyd uprising. And again, it's ridiculous. So I'm going to put this on 1.25x because, I got a life to live, but let's watch.
That happened at the at this incredibly important place also makes it significant. I mean, that's something that in some places would be more common, that there'd be a riot at the at the seat of power, but it's incredibly uncommon in this country. So I mean, I think we should give it its due for its significance. But I also think
it a riot, Professor. Was it a riot?
Yeah, I think that's the more accurate term. Yes.
Really? Was the beer hall putsch a riot?
No, I think that. So I think that I'd say two things about the beer hall putsch. So one, I think that was in a different sense actually an attempted, putsch.
They brought bombs to the DNC and RNC buildings. Bombs, motherfucker. Bombs capable of killing thousands of people. Bombs. If the bombs went off, would it have been an insurrection? Again, the term insurrection does not hinge on an attempt. It does not hinge on whether or not you failed or won. It hinges on the idea that you attempted. The word insurrection means you are rising up against the government with the intent to overthrow the government. That's what it means, right? When you plant bombs on buildings that can kill thousands of people, that is an insurrection. Bombs. Is it not an insurrection because the bombs didn't go off? Do we really have to have 3,000 people get murdered in an explosion for it to be a real insurrection? The bombs were there. The only reason they didn't go off was because the government acted in a way that was actually relatively impressively quick. And again, I want to be very clear. I am not a fan of the government. I don't like the government. In fact, I want to see the fall of the United States government. But I do not want to see right-wing fascists be the ones to overthrow the government. I would rather have the United States of America than the United Dictated States of Donald Trump or whatever they're trying to do. Again, they planted bombs.
In a way that I don't think quite applies to this. But second, I find the fixation on that in discussions that's a little odd, because the Nazis did not in any sense come to power because of the beer hall putsch. I mean, except maybe that the beer hall putsch was such an embarrassing disaster that convinced them that they needed a completely different strategy and to start over again. But the idea that there's the beer hall putsch and the Nazis came to power, therefore, if there's anything that, even if you squint at it at just the right angle, looks like the beer hall putsch, therefore, it's, the alarm gets raised to 11, it doesn't really make sense to me. I think that it is what happened at the Capitol is, I think there are a couple of differences between it, but I think it's in the same category as other political riots that have happened
So, how did Nazis come to power? One of the chief ways they did that was from propaganda, convincing people that Jewish people were the enemy. Then, what they did was made pogroms more of a thing, where they convinced people to go out there and destroy Jewish-owned businesses and kill Jewish families just for the sake of being Jewish. Now, we have seen similar kinds of activities in the United States. Look at the Walmart shooting that happened in Texas, I think in 2019, maybe it was early 2020, it was a while ago. Look at the church, the black church that was shot up by that guy who got Burger King after, right? We are seeing similar kinds of violence be instilled by right-wingers. Look in New Zealand, by the way, this is not America, but I also think it is important to understand the global implications of rising fascism. Look at what happened in Christchurch, New Zealand, where an absolutely insane, internet-obsessed fascist killed, shot up an entire mosque, treating it like it was a video game. The fascism is on the rise. Pogroms are happening all over the place. There are people dying every single day because of hate crimes, right? And this guy is trying to say, oh, it's just a political riot. Just a political riot. Like remember the black people and they did their protest and they had a riot? It's the same thing. What the fuck is wrong with you, Ben Burgess? Again, I'm not coming from a place of hatred. I want to know what the fuck is going through this guy's head where he thinks that Black Lives Matter demonstrations are more problematic or as problematic than white people trying to overthrow the government to install Orange Man as dictator, right? Black people have been historically suppressed, oppressed. They have had genocides committed against them for thousands of years. They've been enslaved for thousands of years. And right to this day, they are still being oppressed and shot and killed in record numbers by police for no goddamn reason. White people, Trump supporters, what's happening with them? Oh, I have to wear a mask now. Oh, my freedom. Oh, Facebook censored me one time. Oh, time to destroy the government. What the fuck is wrong with you to compare the history of Black Lives Matter demonstrations to fascist, losers trying to destroy the U.S. government? It is ridiculous. It is ridiculous. And watch him continue. This is where I decided I was going to watch the whole debate. This is what the part I saw this morning.
In the last couple of years.
For example.
Well, I mean, I think, we just watched yesterday all of this, testimony from Capitol Police officers about traumatic experiences. But of course, you could, if you were so inclined, you could you could have days of testimony of traumatic experiences from officers who were injured during the post.
Oh, officers who are injured. I'm sorry. Let him finish his.
Floyd riots in the summer of 2020. There was,
George Floyd riots? Riots? Motherfucker, I swear to you, Ben Burgess right here sounds indistinguishable from neo-Nazis. I'm telling you that right now. Do I think Ben Burgess is a neo-Nazi? No. I think he's a dumb motherfucker who's falling for neo-Nazi propaganda and who has lost the plot. Do you know what happened during the George Floyd uprising that didn't happen on January 6th? Except for one instance, and we're talking about Ashley Babbitt here being shot and killed. You know how many people were killed? How many protesters were killed during that summer? Dozens. Dozens of them were murdered, not just by cops, but by right-wing infiltrators the cops let through and then cops escorted away. Hundreds of people were stabbed, shot with rubber bullets, right? Some people were killed and then only revived in the street by street medics, right? Police arrested thousands of people unlawfully. They snatched people off the streets in unmarked vans. To compare the George Floyd uprising to January 6th requires you to be a fucking loser. You need to be a sheltered little brat who hasn't talked to anyone who knows anything about anything. And it is ludicrous that this guy feels like he can go out there and say, I represent social democrats, I represent the left, while he's talking about George Floyd riots, quote unquote, being worse than January 6th. And again, I don't give a fuck about cops crying in Congress. I think it's useful to understand how and why the Thin Blue Line crowd went up and tried to kill 100+ cops and injured them. That's useful to understand, but at the end of the day, I don't give a fuck about those cops. To me, a cop crying in testimony is good. It makes me happy to see cops cry. Oh, why did my own supporters try to kill me? Maybe you should rethink your life choices, you fucking pig. But again, this is my problem with this motherfucker. And I'm like, I don't know how much I'm going to interject. I don't know if I'm going to get through this whole debate, but this is the part I really wanted to talk about. The motherfucker compared an uprising against police brutality and state violence and state oppression to a bunch of whiny babies who lost an election and wants their orange man back. Are you fucking kidding me?
You are a dirtbag leftist.
I think there was one event that's in the summer of 2020. There was, there was.
You are a dirtbag leftist.
I think there was one event in Milwaukee, if I'm getting this right. I was looking at yesterday, where there were dozens of cops that were injured in some cases by mortars or other explosive devices. So I think that part's pretty similar.
Mortars and explosive devices. Can we talk about that? Mortars and explosive devices, also known as fireworks. Also known as you go downtown to the fireworks shop and buy a couple rounds. But no, those are mortars and explosive devices. January 6th, people planted legitimate, large, full-scale bombs that would have been capable of killing thousands of people. The people that planted those bombs haven't been caught. A couple teenagers launching fireworks, and then, oops, one of the sparks may have touched a cop's wrist somewhere. Oh, I'm so injured. Mortars? What? 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 What the fuck is wrong with this guy? Ben Burgess is a fucking idiot. Now again, if Ben Burgess says, oh man, I'm sorry for going on this cringe tour after debating and having all these conversations and listening to feedback, I realized how wrong I was. Go for it, Ben. Please fucking apologize. But if this guy is gonna dig his heels in, and God forbid if he goes on another fucking show to do the same bullshit apologia for Nazis, I swear to God, now is not the time for this garbage. Seriously. What the fuck is wrong with you?
Or we could look, at something like, Chaz, where two people were actually killed, by participants.
Chaz, what he's referring to is the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, where yes, people did get killed. By participants? Define participants. Last time I checked, the murders were chalked up to the fact that people took advantage of the lawlessness area known as the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone. People with nefarious intentions went in, caused problems, and it resulted in people dying. Is that okay? No. It's horrible. It's disgusting that people died there. But to blame the George Floyd uprising and to convince yourself that all Black Lives Matter riots are the same because of a lot of bad shit going on in one area that had really little to do with the, quote, participants and more to do with right-wing infiltrators causing problems is ridiculous. Is fucking ludicrous.
And let me, because you're dealing with facts here. So I hear this from the right that the protests, the George Floyd protests last summer, were violent, and a lot of that violence.
Well, I certainly didn't say that. I think there was.
BLM. I'm hearing that the BLM.
Certainly didn't say and wouldn't say that. I think that what happened last summer, in the overwhelming majority of cases, were peaceful protests.
Okay,
Floyd protests last summer were violent.
Ben Burgess literally just said Black Lives Matter demonstrators were launching mortars. Mortars! When you think of mortars, I think of tanks launching fucking, like, ballistic missiles to, like, and the mortars. This motherfucker said Black Lives Matter protesters used mortars. Who the fuck's that? He exclusively focused on violence, and now he's gonna say, I didn't say that. I didn't say that. I didn't say that. Watch him do this. He literally just said that. Rewind the tape. It literally just happened.
And a lot of that violence.
Well, I certainly didn't say that. I think there was.
BLM. I'm hearing about the BLM.
Certainly didn't say and wouldn't say that. I think that what happened last summer, in the overwhelming majority of cases, were peaceful protests. But there were also riots where there was like real violence that happened, including lots of cops who were injured, and some people who were actually killed. I mean, those are.
Okay. Can you give me specifics on that? In other words, were the BLM marches violent?
No.
Did the BLM marches, the Black Lives Matter marches, result in police officers being shot and killed?
Shot and killed, I don't know about, but of course, no police officers were shot and killed at the Capitol. This is remarkable.
No, I'm just curious, like you're saying.
No. But I mean, if we're talking about the parallel, right? I want to be really clear on this because for months there was a falsehood that was widely reported, which was that Brian Sicknick, a Capitol police officer, died as a result of his injuries, which we now know is false.
Let's get this straight. Ben Burgess said the Black Lives Matter riots were violent and injured cops with, quote, mortars, and people were killed by, quote, participants in Chaz. Then he says, I don't know. All I know is January 6th was no big deal. What?
The thing is that he had a heart condition. Now, am I sure the fact that he died when he did is because his heart condition was exacerbated by the stress of dealing with the riot? Absolutely. But if a police officer died after a riot last summer during the post-George Floyd unrest in exactly the same deal. He had a heart condition and the stress of dealing with the riot.
It's not about the fact that cops were injured. It's about why they were injured and who injured them. Ben Burgess is so concerned with the what and not the how and the why. The how and the why are the parts that matter. The what is fucking irrelevant. I don't give a fuck about the what. Cops are getting hurt. Yawn. I don't give a shit. They should have got a different job. They should have done something else. What I care about is why they were hurt. On January 6th, thin blue line flag carrying motherfuckers were beating the shit out of cops with the very same thin blue line flag. What? That's bizarre. And why were they there? To overthrow the government. What? I don't understand. Now, again, why? Oh, a cop may have had a water bottle thrown at them in Minnesota like a year ago. Oh, they were injured. The cop was injured. Oh, no. Why were they injured? Because they shot and killed people for no reason. And they blinded protesters. They blinded journalists. They fucking almost killed a lot of people, right? They shot and maimed people, are handicapped for the rest of their life now because of police brutality. Did the cops hurt anyone on January 6th besides Ashley Babbitt? And why did they hurt Ashley Babbitt? Because she was climbing through a fucking window where a congressman was on the other side of the door. What? This guy is comparing and contrasting totally different events and trying to pretend they're the same. Oh, cops were injured. What the fuck is wrong with you?
Pushed him over the edge. Would we be comfortable with calling that a cop who was killed by the rioters? I absolutely would not.
But hang on, I just want to get something. Facts. Hang on for 1 second.
Okay.
Hang on. There were protests and riots last summer.
Yes.
And you're saying that Antifa, the left, sparked some protests? I know that we hear that.
I didn't mention Antifa.
Okay. So who was behind, say, what was going on in Portland? We hear about federal buildings being burnt. It was a church in Washington, D.C. set upon fire. The church that Donald Trump had to go and hold the Bible upside down. Was that church set on fire by BLM?
This is the first time I've heard that it was set on fire.
Well, that's what the right is saying. They're saying that.
Well, but I don't care what the right is saying.
Well, you should.
No, I shouldn't care. You shouldn't.
Now look at the Ben Burgess temper tantrum. David Feldman is basically saying, hey, you sound a lot like a right-winger. Do you also believe these things? And now Ben Burgess is crying on live stream?
The right is saying. They're saying that.
Well, but I don't care what the right is saying.
Well, you should.
Also, you don't care what the right is saying? They just tried to destroy the U.S. government. And you don't care what the right is saying? Huh? Yeah, Donald Trump, he didn't believe that he lost the election. And, by the way, I just want to say very explicitly, Joe Biden is the winner of the 2020 election. Donald Trump is a loser. He will always be a loser. End of story. So he pretends to have won the election, and he incited a bunch of supporters to go to try to destroy Congress so that he could become a dictator. I don't really care why that happened. But I do care about the mortars that were fucking launched in Milwaukee. The mortars, mother.
Care. You shouldn't care what the right is saying. Here's why not. The right is always going to say a bunch of nonsense where they'll say some true things when it happens to coincide with their point in any given context. They'll say some silly bullshit. They'll say some stuff that has a core of that's true to it, but it's exaggerated.
But you're making the same argument.
They planted bombs. You don't want to know why they planted bombs and tried to kill thousands of people? You're just not interested. Oh, right-wingers? They planted bombs? Oh, that's crazy. Well, they didn't go off, so I guess there's no problem. Oh, you want... Why? Oh, I don't care why they planted the bombs. They didn't go off. Doesn't matter why. Oh, we haven't found? 7 months later, we haven't found? Almost 8 months later, we haven't found? Who planted bombs? They didn't go off, so who cares? Stop looking for them. What? Who the fuck? Who says that? Apparently Ben Burgess says that. Like, what is wrong? And also, I just love the fact that David Feldman is just asking him, like, very good questions. And Ben is having a temper tantrum, like a child, like an actual child. Like, I don't care what the right is saying. I know they just tried to overthrow the government, and Donald Trump is trying to install himself as a dictator, and he's also going to try to destroy the fucking, like, U.S. by saying that, you know, the pandemic's not real, and he killed, like, fucking 500,000 people for no fucking reason. Who cares? I don't really care why. Anyway, by the way, have you seen those mortars that were launched at cops in Milwaukee?
This is what I hate, right? Saying, oh, if there's overlap between true things that somebody with left-wing goals says in order to make a left-wing
now he's trying to say, well, oh, I'm just speaking the truth. I'm just speaking the truth. What truth are you speaking? You're stating quote-unquote facts and then conflating those things with completely different scenarios in completely different contexts in completely different time periods by completely different people for completely different reasons. I was just talking about the facts. Just talking about the facts. That's like saying, oh, this is like Ben Burgess would probably defend when, people that have been abused kill their abusers, for example. There's plenty of cases in the United States where, let's say, someone who kept getting hit and abused by their spouse or by their father finally fights back and ends up killing them. Right? There are situations where sex trafficking victims, kill the people that are trafficking them and then can escape, and then they get sent to jail for murder. Oh, well, sorry, you murdered someone. You're basically the same thing as a serial killer. I mean, you're telling me people were trafficking you or abusing you and you fought back and tried to defend yourself? I mean, you're basically the same thing as a right-winger who goes to Walmart and kills people. I mean, you killed someone. I don't care why. I don't care how. I don't care about the context. You killed someone. That's the logic of Ben Burgess. The logic of Ben Burgess.
Argument and true things that might be deployed along with some bullshit to make a right-wing argument, that somehow discredits it. And I think that's a recipe for not thinking. I think that's a recipe for turning the brain off and just mindlessly putting a minus wherever anybody on the right puts a plus. I think what the right says should be no part of this discussion.
Okay, so I need you to help me out.
Sure.
The right wing tried to destroy the United States government. Who cares what they have to say? They were the actors. They were the ones who did it. What? They're the fuck? I'm literally trying to understand this. This guy is fucking full of shit. The guy is fucking Looney Tunes. How can you possibly make these comparisons? This is so, like, fucking racist. It's so disgusting. And it's so fascistic that I can't even fucking What the hell? Ben Burgess is going on a cringe tour trying to fucking pretend that January 6th was not as bad as Black Lives Matter riots? What the god fucking damn? Are you... What?
You know more about everything than I do. I'm just...
Obviously false, but okay, let's go.
I just have a moral compass that you seem to lack. But other than that...
We're already off to a comments.
Moral compass that you seem to lack. But other than that...
We're already off to a comments.
No, I just think I have tremendous respect for you despite your complete and utter lack of spirituality and moral guidance. But other than that, I would let you babysit one of my kids who I don't care about. That's how much respect I have for you. I would trust you with one of the kids I'm trying to get rid of.
Oh my God, I can't. David Feldman, man. Shout out to motherfucking Feldman. Like, The way he is capable of respectfully disagreeing with Ben Burgess while also explaining just how evil Ben Burgess is actually being is incredible. This is incredible. It's amazing.
Okay. Is it not a false equivalency to equate?
I'm not making an equivalency.
Okay, hang on. Is it? All right, I'm not going to say whataboutism. You are saying that the police experienced similar trauma.
Yes, clearly.
Last summer.
In some places.
It was clearly. Cops shooting and killing protesters. That's traumatic. It's almost as traumatic as having your own supporter hit you in the head with a pole. Yeah. Shot and killed people. That's cool. That's fine. That's rad. I'm traumatized, bro. Like what?
Says yes, they did.
That is like the insurrection. Well, you won't call it an insurrection.
Well, no, I think it's goofy to call it the insurrection.
Okay, so give me an example, please, of you call it a riot. Give me an example of a riot in this country last summer in which the police were traumatized, had to go to the hospital.
I swear to God,
had heart attacks, and then were demonized by the right wing.
Okay,
we do have the police.
So you see that you're loading a bunch of stuff in the question that has nothing to do with anything I said and isn't relevant to the point, right?
Oh my God, Ben! That's a loaded question. David Feldman is asking you to expand upon your analogy. You said that I'm talking about Burgess. You said that January 6th was a political riot and was just as bad as Black Lives Matter riots. Quote-unquote riots. I do not use the term riot for Black Lives Matter demonstrations. That's what you said. You made the comparison. So now David Feldman is saying, okay, why do you think that comparison is valid? And Ben Burgess says, that's a loaded question. That's a loaded question. I'm a logic professor. Look at me. I have a podcast. What are you doing? Like, what is this?
I'm going to learn. So
you're not. You're not. I'm sorry, but you're not.
Are you going to play the misogyny card here?
Okay.
If I were a woman,
officially intrigued.
If I were a woman, I would be triggered by your tone of voice. But I'm going to let it slide.
Okay.
Answer my question.
So certainly, if you just Google, police officers and
Idio Sarky in the chat says he didn't actually say it though. He just heavily implied it, and that's my problem with Ben Burgess. Is he tries to use weasel words. He's like Sam Harris in the same way that he always gives every sentence he ever writes has get out of jail free cards, so that later on he can say, "Oh, you took me out of context. Oh, you did. Literally, every single thing he says is packed to the brim with get out of jail free cards. Sorry, no, that way he can have any opinion at any time about anything he said.
Injured, nationwide during protests. You'll find police association releasing names of more than 2,000 officers who were injured in the first week of protests last summer. That they have.
Any killed by the protesters?
As far as I know, no, but that's not a disanalogy.
Kyle Rittenhouse?
Hold the phone. I gotta break this out. I gotta break this out of the fucking archive.
All of a sudden we can't talk about Neanderthal DNA anymore.
I know that was really loud, but we need to have this conversation.
So Kyle Rittenhouse wasn't a cop. He was a vigilante who
gave him shelter. Did the cops give him shelter?
So this is, all due respect, David, I think if you want to say something, you should just say it and not pretend it's a question.
There's no question.
I love that Ben Burgess... David Feldman is trying to be respectful, and Ben Burgess is just acting like a child. He's a child. He's a loser. I'm sorry, this is very loser behavior. This is what is going on? I love that his shirt's cut off, because this is a good face. When you're on David Feldman's show, this is what David Feldman has produced. David Feldman asking simple questions has produced this image. I just got it. What the fuck?
The police side with Kyle Rittenhouse, Donald Trump, and the right wing, and that during the summer, we saw next to no incidents of BLM or left-wing Antifa protesters setting fire to buildings. I know there was some questionable stuff that happened in Portland. One of those people ended up getting shot mysteriously by the cops. I don't see how what happened on January 6th is in any way similar.
Was that where the building set fire to? I don't understand why the setting fire to is part of this.
In Portland, we're told that buildings were set on fire, and then the cops went after one of them, and he died mysteriously. The cops, with no due process, killed.
Sure. I mean, if you want to argue that cops are authoritarian and repressive and racist and awful, then I agree. Although I think it's a strange thing to bring up in this conversation, because the reason why we're supposed to see what, from my perspective, is a ugly riot, and one that is different, the most important respect in which it's different. It's not the only respect which is different, but the most important respect that's different from these other riots that we're talking about is that rather than an expression of rage and frustration caused by real injustices, it was incited based on lies. That's the
riot was on January 6th, wasn't it?
So it's not that, black people get shot in the streets by police on almost a weekly occurrence. Nah. It's not about, thousands of years of repression, slavery, genocide. Nah. It's just about them being lied to. What? What? That's the only difference. That's the only difference in Ben's mind, in his fantasy world. The only difference is, one was started by a lie, one was started by, well, let's not get into that part. What? What is this? Like, this is... And also, I just want to say, fucking David Feldman is, this is some very, this is impressive. I dream of being as nice to people as David Feldman can be. This is beautiful. Watching Ben Burgess... maybe tomorrow we'll do a flashback for Ben Burgess's debate with Jesse Lee Peterson. Someone brought this up to me on Twitter yesterday. Do y'all remember when Ben Burgess debated Jesse Lee Peterson and lost? Remember that? Jesse Lee Peterson. Amazing. That guy. Ben Burgess debated him and lost. He lost the debate against Jesse Lee Peterson. How... What? How do you lose against Jesse Lee Peterson? Ben Burgess showed us how he lost. And he's having the same kind of temper tantrum here that he did then. No, not applicable. It was Burgess versus Jesse Lee Peterson. Imagine losing... maybe... Does anyone want me to watch that tomorrow? Don't go ahead and watch it. Wait until tomorrow, and I'll watch it live on stream, and we'll do a flashback. Alright? How does that sound? Tomorrow, we'll do Burgess versus Peterson. This happened 2 years ago or something. It's a good fucking flashback. It's amazing. And he lost the debate. So, but this is this reminds me of the same thing. Is Burgess just keeps getting mad and fucking talking in circles, and it's just hilarious.
Yeah. Right. So that I think that's the most important difference. But given that that the whole, any violence that we're talking about, right? Exactly one person was killed on January 6th, which was somebody who was an unarmed person who was shot by the cops. We can argue about whether that was justified or not, but they have that's the only person who was killed. You have in.
Ben Burgess says we can argue about Ashley Babbitt's killing being justified. No, we can't. There is a member of the government on the other side of a door. She broke a window and tried to climb through the window and attack them. Now, again, I am against police violence as a whole. That congressperson should not have been there at that time. That cop or Secret Service person, whatever it was, right? They should have taken them somewhere else as soon as possible. They should have planned a lot better. The cops outside should have not let those people in. So I consider that to be the problem. But if we're talking about the instance where she's crawling through the window trying to kill a sitting member of Congress, I mean, really? Really, though? That is not the same as anything that happened over the course of the summer of 2020. Not even close.
And if we're going to talk about violence against cops, not how bad the cops are, which, as you know, I don't need any convincing of that. I agree with that, right? But if we're going to talk about violence against cops, then of course there was quite a bit of that last summer. Again, 2,000 police officers reported injured over the course of the initial weeks. There were 97 police cars that were burned during those official weeks. There are videos of some protesters or rioters.
Did I hear that correctly? Did Ben Burgess talk about cars being burned? That's not possible.
of that last summer. Again, 2,000 police officers are reported injured over the course of the.
Again, let's talk about police injuries. Police, literally, I shit you not, file reports as being injured if a water bottle hits their fucking, like, armored vest. A riot cop with fucking steel armor all over their body getting hit by a water bottle gets reported as an injury. Who reports injuries when it comes to police? The police do, and they lie. But Ben Burgess is like, yeah, thousands of them. One of them got hit with a water bottle. Whoa! Water bottles, empty water bottles raining from the sky, pinging off of steel armor. Damn, those cops really had it rough.
The initial weeks, there were 97 police cars that
97. I love how he uses an exact number. Like, yeah, there were around 2,000 police injuries. But yeah, there were also 97 cop cars that were set on fire. Whoa!
In those official weeks, there are videos of some protesters or rioters pelting cops with bricks, water bottles, fireworks, and.
Oh, they're not protesters. They're rioters. They're rioters. That's what they are. Believe me, they're the Black Lives Matter rioters. Threw a water bottle at a cop. Oh no. I want to tell you, when a cop has steel armor on, bricks also don't hurt. Water bottles especially don't hurt, but bricks also don't hurt. The motherfucker's got steel armor on. The motherfucker could be shot with a shotgun and be fucking fine, maybe a little rattled. What?
Rioters pelting cops with bricks, water bottles, fireworks, and other objects, including Molotov cocktails. One agency reported dumpsters, trash cans, trees, furniture, and vehicles being set on fire in many cities.
And how many cops were killed?
I love that Ben Burgess is basically just reading from, like, fucking Ben Shapiro's press release in, like, fucking July of 2020. 97 cop cars were set on fire. Cops were hit by water bottles and bricks. Molotovs were thrown into dumpsters. All hell is breaking loose. What the fuck?
0 in both cases. 0 on January 6th.
And January 6th, was that about attacking the cops or attacking Nancy Pelosi, Mike Pence, and our Constitution?
So again, here's the.
Is it about the cops? Was this a riot?
I just you can argue with me, or you can do the Socratic questioning thing. I think that you should just say what you want to say. But I think that as far as how.
Well, no, I don't argue. I'm an inquisitor.
No, but that's just.
I love David Feldman. David Feldman, I love you. You are fucking amazing. Like, I'm not an arguer. I'm an inquisitor. Who says that? David Feldman says that.
You should just say what you want to say. But I think that as far as how.
Well, no, I don't argue. I'm an inquisitor.
No, but that's just a bullshit way of arguing.
No, I'm talking.
David, that is just a way of arguing. That's just
I am
of saying, hey, do you not see that I am correct? And then
No, I'm writing a book called "Give Me an Inquisition." And one of the things that I've noticed, instead of debating,
the problem is if someone who disagreed with you gave you an inquisition,
Remember when I think it was Andrew Neil interviewed Ben Shapiro? Do you remember that? And asked him a tough question on abortion, and then Ben Shapiro said Andrew Neil was like, oh, a left-wing, like, militant asking bad questions. This isn't a debate. This is a literal interview. This is, hey, you said and have said some really bizarre stuff, and I've got a couple questions for you. Ben Burgess, more like Ben Shapiro. Like, seriously, it's the same style of crying and saying, oh, you're just pushing a narrative? Why don't you just say what you want to say? Why are you asking questions? I'm Ben Burgess. What?
You would very quickly say it was bullshit because their questions were loaded with a bunch of assumptions.
They're not loaded questions. They're just trying to tie you down to a specific thing. But again, Ben Burgess loves the get out of jail free cards. He doesn't want to have an opinion. He wants to be able to change his opinion at any time and then pretend like he's never changed his opinion. That's the way his brain works. He wants to say the same shit over and over and over so that he can constantly swim from one position to another based on whatever's convenient. David Feldman is just asking him to be specific. And Ben can't be specific. He's never been trained on being specific. His entire way of arguing is based on specific definitions of specific words, but he can never be specific. He doesn't know how. He always tries to pin other people. Is that technically an insurrection? Is that technically fascism? But he can't answer simple questions of a similar variety. What is going on here?
First of all, your misogyny is if I were a woman, I'd be triggered by this.
Sure.
I just want to say, as a woman, I'm highly triggered right now. I'm very upset.
I really am not debating you. I'm trying.
No, you are though. I mean,
no, I'm not. I'm trying to arrive at what you truly believe and what you think is true.
But I keep trying to tell you what I think is true, and you keep stopping it.
Okay,
ask these incredibly loaded questions.
It was a riot.
To begin to respond to it, I have to say
it's a riot.
They have a yes. I think it's.
You don't think it's an insurrection?
No, I don't think it's insurrection, and here's why.
I just want to say Ben Burgess literally said. In fact, let me see if he has this tweet still up, because he deletes his tweets all the time, so that people can't look back at him. But I'm pretty sure. Okay, I think he deleted it. But at one point he tweeted out that while calling it an insurrection is technically true, we shouldn't call it that because blah blah blah. Now, he is switching his opinion from, while it's technically an insurrection, but I think it's a goofy word, to, oh, it's not an insurrection. It's not. What? What? But you said it was, like, a couple days ago, bro.
The comparison about other riots for causes that I'm more sympathetic to is important. Because I know a lot of people hear that and say, well, anything that sounds like it's talking shit about things where I feel one way about, or anything that sounds like it's minimizing something that I feel a completely different way about, I'm going to dislike, and that's going to be the beginning and end of their reaction to it. But the reason I think it's important is because I think that 800 lunatic boomer, terminally online conspiracy theorists pose.
What about the guys who planted bombs? What about the bombs? They were capable of killing thousands of people. What about the panic buttons that got removed at an undisclosed, unknown point in time before January 6th? Officers of AOC and others, Ilhan Omar, had their panic buttons removed. Ayanna Pressley, I also think, mentioned it. No big deal. Bombs being planted that could have killed thousands? Whatever. They were boomers, bro. Meanwhile, oh yeah, does all the Black Lives Matter people are rioters and looters because someone threw a water bottle?
Who's a infinitesimally smaller threat to democracy than the expansion of the security state in the name of cracking down on domestic.
Here we go, the fucking security state. This is like fucking it's like a Mott and Bailey kind of scenario here. Every time you press him on January 6th and why he's so enabling of fascism and why he hates Black Lives Matter protests so much, then he's always, oh, the security state. You know, that same security state that snatched people in unmarked vans in Portland and illegally detained them? That was pretty bad for the security state. What about the security state that sent U.S. Marshals out to murder Michael Ryanel before a trial and then delete all the footage of it? The same thing happened with Winston Smith as well. One hell of a security state. What about the NSA that literally spies on everyone's text messages, phone messages, everyone's emails at all times? What? The expansion of the... Yes. Could the security state get worse? Absolutely. But if you're going to say it's no big deal in the summer of 2020, yeah, people are being snatched by unmarked... Yeah, cops were deployed, millions of dollars were spent, even and to just shoot and kill protesters and journalists. Whatever, bro. Yeah, we sent out hit squads to go track people down for hundreds of miles so that we could assassinate them and then delete the footage and pretend it never happened. Whatever, bro. But did you know, if you talk about January 6th being bad, that the security state is going to get expanded? Did Ben Burgess do this last year? Oh, we shouldn't throw water bottles at cops because then they're going to expand the security state. This is some Mott and Bailey bullshit, and it's childish.
Terrorism, which is what, the entirety of all the January 6th here, that's what it's about. And to see why that's dangerous, we need to think back to how many things are true of this that were also true of many riots that happened last summer. So if we have this infrastructure in place that domestic...
One party supports what happened on January 6th, the Republican Party. How many political parties supported what happened during 2020? 0. The Democrats were basically unified in condemning rioting and looting, and the Republicans were unified in condemning rioting and looting. There were like maybe 5 or 6 members of Congress that had anything other than do not riot and loot and mass. There were a couple of them, maybe. Just how there's a couple of Republicans that think that January 6th was a big deal. But the parties were unified against protests in 2020. Right now, the parties are split. The Republicans think that nothing happened. So, I mean, I'm just being honest with you. Like, these comparisons are ludicrous.
Extremists are this big threat, that we need to have a new war on terror against domestic extremists. And then what happens last summer happens again. And people who were rightly outraged about police brutality protest. Some of the protesters riot, most of them don't. And some of the same kind of violence that happens.
The distinction between rioting and looting is a scapegoat to divide people that would otherwise agree. We all need to unanimously agree that breaking a window is not rioting, and stealing sneakers from a fucking corporation like Walmart is not looting. Who gives a fuck? To say that people are bad at protesting because they stole sneakers from a fucking giant multinational corporation, we have better and more important fish to fry, motherfucker. To say someone is rioting because they stood on top of a police car for 3 seconds and took a photo of themselves, like, gee, that's what people are being charged with rioting over. Who cares?
Last summer again happens. You just handed the police and the security state a golden opportunity to crack down much harder than happened last time.
May I respond to your libertarian hogwash?
Ah! Yo. Look, I just paused, like, Ben's initial reaction. Again, I want to emphasize dead at the bottom of the screen. Like, Ben's fucking reaction is like, oh, no! Like,
to crack down much harder than happened.
Look at David Feldman's face. He's like, I'm about to destroy this motherfucker's career. Like, David Feldman is like, Ben, I know you're my friend, but I do this because I love you. And then, like, he pulls the trigger.
Last time.
May I respond to your libertarian hogwash?
You may respond to my leftist common sense, yes.
Okay.
This motherfucker thinks he's a leftist. He's against protesting. He's against Black Lives Matter uprisings, right? He's against communism, right? He's against, protesting the government. He's against throwing a water bottle at cops. He is in favor of planting bombs at the Capitol. He is in favor of attacking cops with a thin blue line flag. He is in favor of trying to destroy the United States government and install a dictator. But common sense leftism.
Okay. World War II. Yes, this is the same argument that you're making.
Okay, I look forward to hearing what my argument is. Yes.
And quite frankly, I've been trying to keep it even. I'm keeping score, and I'm rooting for you. I'd like you to come on this show once and win an Inquisition. You've never won an Inquisition.
Yeah, well, I think the nature of Inquisitions is that the person being inquisited can't win. But okay.
Well, convert. Just convert. Prove to me that you've converted and you've won. We've all won. That's all I want you to do is convert. World War II.
Yeah. Okay. Always promising, by the way, that when something has been compared to World War II, that is always an excellent beginning. But go for it.
Okay. World War II. Hey, we just got attacked on Pearl Harbor.
What is the bullshit, though? Oh, you compared something to World War II? Impossible. What? It's impossible. World War II never existed. What is it? Like, I don't understand what the fuck he's saying. You can't compare things to World War II because World War II was so special? What was so special about World War II? Was it maybe, like, the most obnoxious and ridiculous and bloody war in human history? Sure. But that doesn't mean we can't have a World War III. During World War II, would you have said, oh, you're comparing this to the Great War? Why are you comparing what's going on to the Great War? This isn't the Great War. The Great War was a big deal. How dare you compare what's going on to the Great War? A couple years later, uh-oh, whoops. Like, look at this fucking, like, ridiculous smile on his face.
Day. Ironically, it's called Pearl Harbor Day. What are the odds that we would be attacked on Pearl Harbor Day? I'm outraged. It was a horrible thing that happened. It was horrible. But for us to build up the military and take on Tojo and Emperor Hirohito, the overcorrection of building up a military industrial complex
It's not worth fighting Hitler and Japan at the expense of our civil liberties when we go to war, and all the money that's going to be spent on bombs instead of butter. So that's the argument you're making.
Wow. Man,
basically what I'm saying is
you're
okay with Hitler. You're okay with Hitler.
Oh my God! Yo, the kill shot. I know there's been like 17 kill shots, but that one is a gutter punch. Now I want to say that this is a great analogy from David Feldman, but I also want to say an important part of scaling up is scaling down. What happened after World War II is we transitioned into the Cold War, and we started building like more nukes, and we started to threaten each other with nuclear weapons for no goddamn reason because we're a bunch of fucking idiots. I'm talking about humans. We are, Lord have mercy, okay? So, and again, we also need to talk about the fact that we had concentration camps in the United States as well during World War II. That being said, scaling up is one thing as long as you scale down. Now, I don't even think we need to scale up against right-wing terrorism. We have enough resources. We have enough government officials. They just need to target their resources better. That's the conversation we should be happening. So I want to say, although I like his analogy, I don't necessarily agree with it, David Feldman. But either way, what I'm saying is you agree with Hitler.
Man,
basically what I'm saying is you're okay with Hitler. You're okay with Hitler.
I must be pretty dumb if I'm making that argument. And
you're saying that
also pretty terrible. You should not trust me to babysit those kids.
I don't care about the kids. I really don't.
I can't.
No, seriously. You're saying you don't trust the government to fix what happened on January 6th. You think they're going to make it. You think the cure is going to be worse than the disease. That's what
I do think the cure is going to be worse than the disease, and I would agree with you that winning World War II is a case where the cure was not worse than the disease. But if we could introduce a second analogy, certainly one of the formative political experiences of my life, when I was in college, was the September 11th terrorist attacks and the response to that.
So again, I agree with Ben Burgess on this one. Right now, I want to say again, I want to be very clear about my opinions here. If they scale up the security state and then go after left-wingers, that's a problem. If they go after left-wingers with the current apparatus, that's a problem. If they go after right-wingers and they realize they can't go after them enough and they scale it up a little bit, go after the right-wingers and scale back down, that's good. Now, that's not what happened in the Iraq War. This is what we're fighting for now. Now, if Ben Burgess is saying it's better not to even fight at all, whatever, right? But let's say, all right, 9/11, let's cut ties with Saudi Arabia and not go to war and kill innocent people for no reason, but let's try to find the people that, planned it or whatever, and let's actually do our jobs. Instead, what they did was they invaded another random country for no reason, made up a bunch of people that were involved in 9/11 that weren't, absolved the actual leaders involved with 9/11 of any of their wrongdoings, gave them more money, and then just attacked and occupied a region, killing kids and innocent civilians for decades. That's a problem. Does that mean we should never ever try to fix a problem ever again? Not necessarily, but it means that that's one hell of a motherfucking problem. And that's an epic fail. It's an epic fail. Right, it is an epic fail. But is that to say that you shouldn't ever, in any capacity, try to solve a problem because the problem could grow at it, or like you could solve it incorrectly? I think we need to have a nuanced conversation here. I think historical analogies are good and useful, but at the same time, we are living in the present. We need to learn from our mistakes. We need to say, yes, maybe some things what happened back then are good and true. Maybe we can use them here, and we can learn from the lessons of overscaling and, pretending the boogeyman is someone else. We can learn a lot, and we should learn a lot. That's what history is there for, to learn from.
And I would say that 800, some of them armed, in ways that some rioters last summer were armed, but mostly unarmed, rioters at the Capitol are a whole lot more like Al-Qaeda attacking on September 11th than they are like the Japanese Empire taking over vast stretches of the planet and carrying out widespread massacres and imposing totalitarian governments, allying with Hitler, wiping out European Jewry, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And even though, right, like, so Al-Qaeda attacking on 9/11, where I think we all agree it would not be libertarian hogwash to say that the cure was 10,000 times worse than the disease, that the expansion of the security state after 9/11, the rollbacks of civil liberties, the wars that are still going on decades later, that all of that was just unfathomably worse than the disease. But notice, if we compare September 11th to January 6th, one difference is that the rioters killed 0 people on January 6th, whereas Al-Qaeda killed 3,000 and change people on September 11th. Including knocking a hole in the Pentagon, and trying apparently to get the White House. So if we're talking about national security threats, that ranks way higher. And if we're talking about the ideology, because I think that's an important thing to talk about, because you were talking about all the things that they were against earlier, and oftentimes if you say this is a disgusting riot and anybody who did anything violent should certainly be prosecuted, but that's all it was, and we shouldn't exaggerate something beyond it that could be used to justify expanding the security state in ways that 100% for sure will be used against the left. That look at what Al-Qaeda stood for, right? I mean, the same way that I have I think it's ridiculous, that I thought it was ridiculous after 9/11 that people like me who were against the wars, against the civil liberties rollbacks, were constantly accused of sympathizing with Al-Qaeda or, not understanding, how bad they were. I think it's ridiculous that people like me are accused of somehow sympathizing with the January 6th rioters or not.
You know what's the key difference here? Everyone knows who incited January 6th. The problem with 9/11, which is what led to the misinformation, which is what led to the illegal occupations and wars and the massacre of 1 million people, was the fact that not everyone knew who was responsible. We know who is responsible for January 6th. They wear it on their sleeve. They're satisfied. They're happy with it. Donald Trump, the Republican Party, Steve Bannon, right-wing militias. We know who is responsible. Rudy Giuliani. We have them. They're right there. The call is coming from inside the house here.
Understanding how bad they are. Al-Qaeda is a fascist organization.
Nobody's accusing you of sympathizing with January 6th.
I do. I just want to say I do. David Feldman is playing this one nice. I 100% think that he is definitely sympathizing with January 6th rioters. Insurrectionists, I should say. Because what you're doing is, again, he's trying to say, a cop was hit with a water bottle by a Black Lives Matter protester. Therefore, what happened on January 6th is no big deal. Sorry, go fuck yourself. But I just want to say, David Feldman, again, I agree with his approach, because if he would have went more nuclear, Ben might have rage quit and yelled. But
what I'm accusing you of is trivializing what happened, not
that's exactly what people were accused of, anti-war people were accused of after 9/11, is trying to say that 9/11 wasn't a big deal. I think 9/11 is a big deal, but I don't think that Al-Qaeda represented something.
Again, the key difference is we know who is responsible for January 6th. We did not know who was responsible for 9/11 at the time. And that responsibility was shifted and lied about, and people bought it. So, for example, if let's say, the Republicans say, like some of them have tried to say Nancy Pelosi is responsible for January 6th. Some of them have tried to say that. AOC and Maxine Waters are responsible for January 6th. Some of them actually think that. Maybe they don't actually think that, but there's someone out there that's heard that and says, oh yeah, that's gotta be true. Now let's say that happens, then the Republicans would go all right, let's expand the state and let's go after these fucking criminals. Or let's say they were able to deflect it to someone who's not in government. Let's say it's oh yeah, that person over there is responsible for January 6th. Then they would go after that guy. The point is, we know who is responsible. It's very obvious who's responsible. It cannot be lied about on why January 6th happened. Donald Trump, Rudy Giuliani, Steve Bannon, all these motherfucking freak shows, Mike Pence for enabling as long as he did, Josh Hawley, Tom Cotton. We know who's responsible. It's all been broadcast on live television. They all constantly tweet about how responsible they are.
Some sort of profound threat to Western civilization. Similarly, I think a political riot is always a big deal. I think that having it be egged on by the sitting president is a much bigger deal. But I also think that realistically, there was, we're talking about an event that...
Notice Ben Burgess says the term big deal. Big deal is what he said. That's a big deal. That's a way of conflating January 6th and the George Floyd uprising, but not making an opinionated stance on either one? Yeah, they're just both a big deal. It's a big deal. Yeah, I think the George Floyd uprising was a big deal. In a good way. It showed that this world, this entire planet, is capable and in some cases willing to fight back against oppressors. I think that that's a huge deal. I think that that's amazing. January 6th is also a big deal, but for different reasons. Again, he's focusing on the what, ignoring the why and the how.
You know, we're using this term, the insurrection, even though literally not one single person fired a gun except for a cop.
Okay, what about the bombs? Anyone? The bombs? I really hope David Feldman brings up the bombs.
That's not how the word insurrection has ever been used before. And saying that doesn't really fit. That's not trivializing.
Okay, so let me respond to this. So this is you're doing linguistic gymnastics. You're playing tricks with semantics.
I'm playing tricks with semantics when I say that nobody firing a shot makes it farcical to call it an insurrection.
Did anybody fire a shot in Gore v. Bush?
Was that an insurrection?
That was a coup.
I've never heard anybody call it that, but
there are. Let me respond to
David Feldman. I just have to say, David Feldman is quickly becoming my favorite YouTuber because of this, man. Yes, Gore v. Bush was a coup. Absolutely. Full stop. You cannot convince me otherwise. And again, so I'm glad he brought this up. Not a single shot was fired. Yes, that was a successful insurrection. It was a successful coup. Gore won the state of Florida. He won the popular vote. Bush became president because of Supreme Court justices that had family ties to the Bush family. It's that simple. It was a coup. No one was shot.
What you just said. There are many iterations of a coup, and there are many iterations of an insurrection. Just because nobody was shot on January 6th doesn't mean it wasn't an insurrection. It was part of a larger whole. And let me explain to you what I happen to think January 6th was.
Yeah.
Everyone go subscribe to David Feldman's show. I'm just saying, like, you have to. There's no other choice.
It was a flexing of right-wing authoritarian muscle. It was Donald Trump and Rudy Giuliani and the white nationalists, the fascists in our government, in and out of our government, who are saying, look what we can do. Look what I can do. I can stand on the ellipse and send these people to storm the Capitol. If I can get these people to storm the Capitol and create enough confusion to justify, there are enough people. We have a whole propaganda arm, Fox News and AM Talk Radio, who are saying it wasn't an insurrection. It was, at worst, a crime, and you got to understand their frustration. If you can get January 6th, you can get those people to do what they did on January 6th and get away with it. Only have about, if we're lucky, 500 convictions. What else?
Wait a second. 500 convictions out of 800 people? That's like a that seems pretty draconian to me. Do you think 500 people did anything violent on the 6th?
I think 500 people who are going to be sentenced.
Can you be convicted for doing something that's not violent? I know people that have gotten convicted for smoking weed. That's not violent. It's still against the law. That's not to say that I support the drug war. I don't, of course. But to say that you have to be violent in order to break the law? What? What? What if I broke into someone's house? Like I didn't break any windows. I just, like, the door was open. I walked in, and I took a book, and they pressed charges on me, and I got convicted. Sorry. Hey, I wasn't violent, so therefore, isn't that draconian? Your Honor, how draconian of you. I just walked in and took a book. I did not hurt anyone. I did not break anything. All I did was steal stuff. What?
For, like, what, trespassing? 6 months in jail? So, hang on for 1 second. The threat...
Convictions so far have been for more than that, but okay.
Yeah, they've been for a lot of other things. Ben said, oh, what about violence? And then David Feldman said, okay, we're not just talking about violence, we're talking about trespassing, we're talking about stealing, and then Ben's like, oh, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, there's a lot more than that. Yeah. I know, I just specified only violence, but there's a lot more than that, of course. Yeah, there's a lot more. Yeah. I don't know why he sounds like Rocky all of a sudden, but, like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
More than a year?
Well, more than 6 months. Do you consider a year in jail to be trivial if after the Wisconsin state capitol occupation? No, I am not saying those are morally and politically equivalent. I know somebody watching or listening will be enough of an idiot to think I am, but they have. But if after the Wisconsin state capitol occupation in 2011, if 500 people, most of whom had done nothing but illegal breach the state capitol, went to prison for a year, you would consider that to be a slap on the wrist?
I would. The people who stormed the Wisconsin state capitol weren't carrying guns.
The vast majority of those 800 people who stormed the national capitol.
David was in the middle of a sentence, and then Ben said, That's what he said. David's trying to talk, and then Ben's like, what the fuck?
They weren't carrying guns.
How do you know that?
Charging documents.
How do you know how many of them were carried? Were there metal detectors that they went through? Air spray? Do you know?
Because when prosecutors have to actually put their cards on the table, from what we can tell from the charging documents, almost none of those people were carrying guns.
Were they arrested at the scene and searched? Okay, so let me get this straight. You can walk into the Capitol with a gun, concealed gun, not end up using it, so you don't get caught on camera having a concealed weapon. You go home, because they let everyone just go home. You party for the weekend. You throw your gun in the river, in the Potomac, and then you get charged. And the charging documents say, oh, didn't have a gun. Were they arrested on the scene and searched on the scene? If the answer is no, then you don't know, Ben. You have no fucking idea, you fucking moron.
You know that. You going to trust the prosecutors?
I think that being more Catholic than the Pope on the prosecutor question is pretty silly. It's in their interest to try to nail as many of these people.
How are you going to prove
for as many things as they possibly can?
The oath.
No, folks, I'm only like not even a half. I am like spending way too much time on this segment, but this is so entertaining for me. But I just want to let you know I might break this into another segment for tomorrow. Like, it's very possible I will only get through half of this because I personally can't shut the fuck up, and so I keep pausing it. Right? But it's like, this is so goddamn funny, and I love every single second of this.
How prosecutors get promoted. Okay. That's how they build their careers.
The Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys had baseball bats and bear spray and American flag poles.
What percentage of the 800 people do you think were Oath Keepers with bear spray and clubs?
There were Oath Keepers and Proud Boys with walkie-talkies.
Yes. What percentage of the crowd do you think there were?
What percentage of the men who stormed D-Day organized it?
What percentage of men who stormed D-Day?
Ben thinks he's so smart for doing like David's strategy of trying to nail David on something. So Ben's like, what percentage? I'm doing what you do. What percentage? Unbelievable.
We're carrying weapons and firing them 100%.
And they were following orders and being told what to do and getting caught up. The Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys organized this before January 6th. Even Mo Brooks came out today, that when he was telling people to storm the Capitol, today's the day we take names, he was wearing a bulletproof vest. He said Mo Brooks said he slept in the Capitol that day, and he wore a bulletproof vest when he spoke on the ellipse because he knew there was going to be trouble. They knew this thing was organized.
There were bombs.
You don't believe that it was spontaneous, do you?
I think that the very small minority who were right-wing insurrectionary LARPers and militia people. I think that was.
I'm a professional college professor, so let me talk about LARPers. Like what? Like this guy gets mad at me because I use swear words and I'm like I use like memes and stuff. But let me talk about LARPers. I think most of the people on January 6th, let's be honest, they have the lowest of IQs. They're LARPers, folks. They're LARPers. They didn't have the guts to overthrow the government. They're LARPers.
I think that most people, I think that they're
LARPing. They're
yes, they're LARPing. If you don't,
David motherfucking Feldman, they're role playing. I know the word LARP means like in like the meme term, it means a lot more than just role playing. At this point, but I love that David Feldman says they're role playing.
I think that most people, I think that they're
LARPing. They're
LARPing. If 0 people fire a gun at any point in the proceedings, then yes, you are not serious about it.
Maybe they were doing something. Maybe it was a controlled burn. What can you guarantee me? Can you guarantee me?
Well, I'm going to stop
Guarantee
there
you
because
what
obviously I can't guarantee anything in one direction, and you can't guarantee
Yes, I
anything
can.
in another direction.
I can guarantee you that it is against the law to storm the Capitol.
Yes, and the Wisconsin occupiers were breaking exactly the same law.
Did they put bear spray? Did they try to gouge?
Okay, but that's not the same question. They, the bear spray question. You're back to talking.
So what we're looking at here, legally speaking, is there a difference between storming the Capitol with guns and bear spray with the intent to kill the vice president and storming the Capitol trying to, get left, like, slightly liberal legislation passed? Yes, there's a difference. One is people are going in there and screaming at people with no weapons, with no intent to hurt people, just making sure that people hear what they have to say. The other is they're trying to fucking kill people, bro. Yes, there's a difference. And if you don't think there's a difference, you're an idiot. You're a loser. You're a dumb motherfucker. But again, I have to say, I love how Ben Burgess hates historical analogies. Oh, you're talking about World War II? Whatever. Whatever, bro. What about Iraq? What about 9/11? And then he's also, like, doing the fucking... What about Wisconsin? What about Wisconsin, David Feldman?
About the
violence.
Yes, you're back to talking about violence that was committed by a very small number of people. There are a very small number of people who committed violent things, and the reason that I care about...
We prosecute people based on intent all the time, folks. If you have a gun, and you have bear spray, and you have flex cuffs, and you're trying to kill politicians, right? And only some of them, the people that stormed the Capitol, some of them get somewhat close to politicians, and we saw what happened with Ashley Babbitt. She tried to climb through the window to kill them. Bitch was crazy. Like, she was, woof, right? Some of them didn't get close enough. If your goal is, let's say you're trying to make a goal in soccer, right? And, like, let's say you're like, I don't know why I'm trying to do a sports analogy because I know nothing about sports, but bear with me here. So let's say you're like 75% to the goal or whatever, but there's like a bunch of people blocking you so you can't get the shot in. Does that mean you weren't 75% of the way to the... I know, I'm sorry. Please don't look at this. But you understand what I'm trying to say. Like, it doesn't change the fact that because of other circumstances, you could not do what you were attempting to do. You were still attempting to do it. You still almost did it. You were still willing to do it. It's just the circumstances fell in a way that you could not do it.
The distinction between a very small number of people who do violent things, whether, even a very small number of people who do planned, premeditated violent things, is because anybody who has a memory longer than a moth's should be able to think of lots of examples of left-wing protests.
I've never seen in my lifetime, hang on for 1 second.
I love how this guy is genuinely trying to compare Wisconsin to January 6th, though, by the way. Like, what the fuck?
I've never seen a scrum of about 200 people, all white, by the way, storming the Capitol, all pushing on an officer's head that he almost got decapitated. I've never seen anything like the insurrection. So if you can give me an example of what, and I do see
200 people pushing on something with one officer trying to stop them. You think that nothing like that has ever happened over the course of the anti-war movement? Give me an example.
Give me an example.
Of
I remember Abby Hoffman trying to levitate the Capitol. I remember the Weather Underground blowing up buildings, but giving warnings beforehand. But give me an example of a group of right-wingers who stormed a federal building with the intent to overthrow an election.
Yeah, so if you want an example from the era that you just talked about of left-wingers storming a building, then the Black Panthers, who, by the way, actually were all armed, storming the California State Capitol.
Which was legal.
In Sacramento.
No, that was legal. They were the Black Panthers gave us gun control. Governor Reagan, all they did was innocently walk around the state capitol with guns because it was legal. They would show the genius of the Black Panthers was to follow cops as they pulled over African Americans in Oakland, and they would show up with guns because it was legal at the time, and that's why Governor Reagan was for gun control. They didn't storm the Capitol. The Black Panthers didn't.
Okay. They marched into the Capitol brandishing weapons, and you can watch footage of state legislatures jumping under their desks in terror because that happened. And
let's assume, I'm sorry, but let's assume that the Black Panthers broke into the state capitol with the intent to overthrow California state government. Guess what? The Black Panthers at the time had gone through a hell of a lot of things in their lives. Their parents and their parents' parents and their parents' parents' parents, so on, have gone through a lot of things going on. So you know what? I actually would support that. Why? Because the why and the how are completely different, and I consider them to be justifiable. A bunch of whiny baby losers crying that their orange man lost an election, that's not justifiable. I'm sorry. It's different, Ben. But then also the fact that that didn't happen, but he's trying to pretend like it did, and so David Feldman is going off there, basically just correcting him. I thought Ben Burgess was a logic professor, folks.
Right.
Were they arrested? Were the Black Panthers arrested? Were they arrested?
They tightened up. I'm going to finish the point. They tightened up laws in response to it, but that itself is exactly the point, that we shouldn't be, that like, rather than focusing on do we love or hate, the individual people, or do we want to like rhetorically own right-wingers for saying whatever bullshit they're saying about it, we should keep our eye on the vastly larger prize. Do we want things to be tightened up in response?
Okay, hang on for 1 second. Did the Black Panthers gouge anybody's eyes out? They didn't get arrested. They did not get arrested for doing.
Well, I mean, there are several examples of individual Black Panthers who were actually arrested on the accusation.
Is it an overcorrection
on the accusation of killing cops? That happened several times.
Those were false accusations. But
sometimes, I mean, they have a. I don't think like look. I mean, who do I sympathize with in that situation? The Black Panthers, the cops, 100% the Black Panthers.
How the hell did we get to the point where we're talking about Black Panthers versus cops versus January 6th? What is going on, folks? Is Ben Burgess on drugs? Like, seriously, is he on drugs? And if so, what drugs? Because it's the wrong cocktail. I'm on drugs right now. But it's a good cocktail. Like, I'm chill and I'm hyper at the same time. How does that even happen? Ben Burgess is on I've never even heard of a drug that creates this kind of bizarre behavior.
Are you for gun control laws?
But that's...
Are you for gun control laws?
I don't know. I mean, I think that's a complicated question that they have.
So was it an overcorrection for Governor Reagan to introduce and pass gun control laws in response to the Black Panthers following cops with guns and going into the state capitol with guns? Was that an overcorrection? Was that
okay? Much easier question than what I think the gun control laws should be now, which is what it's a big, complicated, messy question that I'm not going to try to do 30 seconds of in the middle of this. But I think that was that an overcorrection you talked about? Yeah, absolutely.
You think that Governor Reagan passing gun control laws in response to the Black Panthers was an overcorrection, an example of big government taking away our rights?
I think that Governor Reagan passing gun control laws as part of an effort to crack down on the Black Panthers for policing the police, to try to do something about police violence in Oakland and other cities, was a very bad thing. Yes. Okay. That's anybody who was like to the left of Hubert Humphrey would have told you at the time it was a very bad thing. This is hardly a libertarian position.
But gun control is a good thing.
Again, I think that's a complicated question. I'm not going to give it a yes or no answer for the purpose of striking a certain.
I personally think guns should only be allowed to be given to minorities. Hey, I'm just... Hot take. Arm the trans people, arm people of color, arm women. Man, I mean, they're so big and strong, right? Like, they got the big both be like, look, I'm going to beat you up. Let them just punch someone. I'm totally not joking, by the way.
Rhetorical, like scrimmage line in this particular debate.
Okay, so give me an example of something similar to January 6th. So far, you've brought up Wisconsin, which is...
Well, again, the point of these is...
Give me an example.
But what you're asking for has nothing to do with the purpose for which I'm bringing these up.
I've never seen anything like...
No, but you said equivalent. I'm not saying any of these things were equivalent. That has nothing to do with the point. Obviously, I think there are vast moral and political differences between these cases. The reason I'm bringing them up is that I don't want the idea that if you have a protest where people storm a government building, which has certainly happened in many, many protests for causes I support over the years, and yes, lots of other differences between those protests. I'm not saying that they're morally equivalent. The point is, if you want to set the precedent that even if somebody does nothing personally violent, just the mere fact that they stormed a Capitol building or other government building during protest, that the book should be thrown at them for doing that. They should get a year in prison for doing that. That is a precedent that I think is incredibly dangerous and could be used for incredibly draconian crackdowns against the left. That's the purpose for which I'm bringing up Wisconsin. Not to say that it's somehow equivalent, but if you want to know what are left-wing protests, riots, events where things happen that were more violent than what happened on January 6th. We don't have to go back very far. Chaz, 2 people were killed by armed members of Chaz. 0 people were killed by anybody on January 6th.
That is not what happened. Like, that's just not what happened. That is such a gigantic mischaracterization. Yes, Chaz, not the greatest thing in the world, had a lot of problems, people died, it's horrible. But to claim that left-wingers infiltrated, like, something and then shot up with a... That is not what happened. That is not what happened. I'm sorry, but that's just not what happened.
Chaz.
The Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone in Seattle last summer.
And who was behind that?
I mean, there's people who were protesting police brutality and murder.
And who?
And who what?
Who died?
I think a couple of young black kids because they were driving by or past like a barricade set up by Chaz security, if I'm remembering the story correctly.
And who killed them?
Members of, like people who were like Chaz, like informal, armed security. People.
I love how Ben doesn't actually know the answer, so he's just making shit up. Like, he's just making shit up. Most of the problems with Chaz, as UL in the chat says, were not people within Chaz. It was people coming in to take advantage of what was going on, and there was a completely wholesale inadequate response to that. Chaz was fine for weeks. And then people saw it, took notes, took advantage, went in, caused problems over and over, put a lot of people on edge, people that shouldn't have been there at certain times with certain things, right? Now, again, is it a problem? Absolutely. But to claim that Chaz is worse than January 6th, I'm sorry. What?
Who are political participants in that project.
Right. And was this a government? So the 2 people who died, they weren't cops?
No, which I actually think makes it a lot worse, don't you?
Well, it wasn't an attack on our...
Okay, but the point, but you keep shifting the goalposts.
No, I'm asking...
Every time I say...
It's funny because Ben is the one that keeps shifting the goal. He brought up Chaz for no reason. Why'd you bring up Chaz? Wait, no, I brought up Chaz. You did. Why'd you? You're killed and then violence and then was anyone violent? Well, what's violent? No one was killed. No one died. No, and then there was no problem with January 6th. They were just LARPers. Nothing happened.
Disrespect. Here's a thing that was similar, and the reason I'm saying that is because I worry about precedents being set and crackdowns on this that could be applied to other similar things in the future that we'd feel differently about. And I say, in this respect, they were similar, and you keep saying, okay, but what about this other respect? They were different. I'm not making a claim of overall equivalency.
I'm asking you for a simple answer, okay? I happen to believe that it wasn't a riot.
Yeah.
I believe it was an act of terrorism and a threat of insurrection. Now,
oh my God, let's not use that word. That's the...
Oh my God, the word is... Oh my God. I hate that word. Please, why? Why are people saying insurrection? Why? I hate that word.
And a threat of insurrection. Now,
oh my God, let's not use that word. That's the terrorism. I mean, first of all, terrorism is a word that I think should basically never pass the lips of anybody who's a leftist.
Oh, okay. So he's mad about terrorism. That's even funnier. That's way funnier. That's way funnier. Like that, like, I get it. Terrorism has been used in awful things. But this time, people are using the term terrorism in a good way. To describe violent right-wing militias that tried to destroy the government and overthrow the government to install Orange Man as dictator. Should we just retire the word terrorist because you're triggered? Or maybe we can say, oh, we have historical examples of using the word terrorism to mean people that aren't terrorists and to use it incorrectly. And now that we have a good example of something we can actually qualify as terrorism, we should actually leap at that opportunity because we can leap at that opportunity and make positive change and actually target actual terrorists. But no, the word triggers me. I don't like it.
The definition of
against that, it's a meaningless term. It's a term whose only
meaningless.
function, it's not like there's some objective definition of terrorism. The only function of the word terrorist is to justify expansions of the national security state. It's a moral hall pass for suspending normal legal requirements. That's all terrorist means.
Okay.
Counterpoint, terrorist is a word that means inflicting violence for political gain or for political purposes. For example, someone shooting up a Walmart, targeting people of color, that's a terrorist. Sorry. They went there with the express purpose of shooting people of color because, whatever, shooting Hispanic people, shooting women, just for fun. And then they released their manifesto online. We also have the case, I think it was Dylan Roof is the guy's name, who went and shot up that church, the black church. That's terrorism. Should we not call that terrorism because we used the word incorrectly in the past? The whole point of calling it terrorism is because now we have a very good and clear example of what terrorism actually is, and we should rehabilitate the word to make it, because people are correctly, or maybe in some capacities incorrectly, familiar with the term terrorism and have gotten misled by it, and now they're going to hear, oh, terrorist applied to this scenario, and they're going to think, oh, that's what a real terrorist. I'm just saying, like,
and so eventually all words lose their meaning.
No, this one never had one.
It does. The definition.
No.
Yes.
I mean, the fact that you can find some dictionary and it has a definition and you can say, sure, this matches that definition. Also, everything.
Now Ben Burgess says it's not an insurrection because the word triggers me. And now the word terrorism just doesn't exist because 9/11.
That the U.S. military does around the world 100 times a day technically matches the dictionary definition. But if you want to talk about how people use the word in real life and have always used the word in real life, the dictionary definition is going to be irrelevant.
Well, I happen to believe that we have building blocks to language, and upon those building blocks of language, we have reason. So the definition of terrorism is a stateless. A telemarketer. It is a stateless group.
Well, that's pretty convenient that you can just build that right in. So all the things that the U.S. military constantly does that would otherwise fit the definition are excluded a priori because it's not a stateless group.
No. The word terror and terrified are inextricably linked. The Ku Klux Klan was a terrorist organization because they would commit acts of violence the same way Al-Qaeda would commit acts of violence as examples of what we're capable of doing. A terrorist organization is a stateless group that kills a few people to show what they're capable of doing and to get a group of people, especially a nation, absolutely terrified. So that is the definition of terrorist activity.
Well, if that's the definition, January 6th doesn't fit because nobody was killed by the people you're calling terrorists in this case.
Thank you.
I would also point out that earlier you said it was about flexing muscles, and I would say
9/11 doesn't count because they didn't actually strike the Pentagon. Right? Doesn't count. Why do people keep mentioning the planes going to the Pentagon? They didn't hit the Pentagon. Doesn't count. Doesn't count. That wasn't a terrorist attack. The World Trade Center was a terrorist attack because they hit the buildings. The Pentagon not getting hit makes it's no longer a terrorist attack. Intent, whatever.
Say if so, the muscles were fucking pathetic because we look at what happened. It was a profound demonstration.
The fact that David Feldman hasn't brought up the bombs yet is kind of disappointing. Also, I want to say that I have spent way too long on this one. Like, I really, really think, like, oh my god, there's no way I'm going to get through another 30 fucking minutes. And then apparently he does like a monologue after. There's no way I'm going to finish this in this stream. If people want me to, I am fine to dunk on Ben Burgess even more tomorrow morning, though. Tomorrow's Saturday. Okay. Fuck. I'll get through a little bit more of this, and then I'll wrap it up tomorrow.
Of the weakness of Trump's position, that he just spent months having Republican-appointed and even Trump-appointed judges all the way up to the Supreme Court laugh his lawsuits out of court, do everything short of writing "lol, fuck no."
Oh, because I'm hungry. I want to eat food. I haven't had breakfast.
And crayon on a little piece of paper and pushing it back when they entered lawsuits. So the judges he appointed wouldn't do what he wanted. The military, I'm sure he would have loved it if they'd intervened for him, but they had no interest whatsoever.
Right. The National Guard totally didn't delay sending the National Guard to the Capitol for 3 hours. Didn't happen. They had no interest. No interest whatsoever. None. Not at all. Yeah, sure, they could have just, put down the whole thing ASAP, but they chose not to. That wasn't them picking a side. Nah. No way.
In doing that, his own vice president wasn't willing to do what he wanted, which is part of what had the mob so riled up in the first place. And so the last resort was this spasm of impotent rage by 800 pathetic boomer conspiracy theorists who he was able to egg on, who had.
There were fucking bombs planted, bro. Is Ben an idiot? Is Ben like a dumb motherfucker? Like, again, I want to say I started this, like, I'm at this point regretting how I started this episode or this segment, because like maybe I don't respect Ben Burgess anymore at all, because this is horrible. What is this?
Had no plan. There was no realistic scenario. You could rewind that and replay it 10,000 times in 10,000 versions of the universe, and there's no version where they would have somehow overturned the result of the election. There was no possibility.
First of all, if we're gonna bring in like the multiple universes theory, right? Yes, there is a version of the universe where they overturn the election, because by that, like there's a version of the universe where every possible thing could have occurred at all times. Like, if we're gonna bring in multiple universes, like, come on, Ben. No, there's only 4 other universes, and they went like this. How do you know? What the fuck? Come on.
Possibility of that. It was an expression of rage because of this lie that they've been told about Trump winning the election. But there was never any sort of realistic path from point A to point B. I mean, if you're just going to say they wish.
Let's say they broke into the Capitol 20, maybe 10 minutes earlier. Let's say Mike Pence was shot and killed. Let's say AOC and other Democratic members of Congress, some Republicans, were shot and killed. Let's say then the National Guard realizing, oh shit, the vice president said, oh, blah, 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 blah. And then let's say Trump threatened, or had threatened members of the military. Let's say there was, a civil war within the military. That's all very possible. And it's very possible that Trump could have come out on top of that. It's all very, very possible. They barely missed Mike Pence. They were within 40 something seconds of getting to him. This is all very possible.
That their expression of impotent rage would somehow do it, then you could say that the weathermen, that was like a serious attempt to overthrow the United States government. It's nonsense.
Nonsense. What would have happened?
Love this argument.
Huh?
Okay, well, let's see if you're going to say what I've heard so many times before. Let's hear it.
I love this Ben Burgess trigger. Oh, I love this argument. Oh, I know you're. Remember, when Ben Burgess did that debate with Aaron, the other day, and was like, "Oh, you believe things that I didn't think that you would believe." Didn't see that coming. Ben loves to pretend like everyone who has conversations with him is the same person. Oh, here we go. I love this argument.
Happened.
36 proved that Donald Trump, Mo Brooks, Rudy Giuliani, Michael Flynn have an army of thugs who will pretty much do what they ask. That the Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys, what did he say during the debate? Get ready, stand back, stand down, but be ready. If you can get these people to storm the Capitol, what else can you get your people to do?
It doesn't matter, because...
I like how that totally was not what Ben Burgess thought David Feldman would say. And now Ben is like, because he has no, canned response to it, right? He was going to be like, oh, this argument I've heard so many times before, and now here's my wrong logic. And then instead he's like, uh-oh, I don't have a prepared response to this. It doesn't matter. What you're saying is irrelevant. It's so wrong. I hate when I do this.
Those groups that you just mentioned, the Proud Boys, the Oath Keepers, we're talking about, a few hundred people in the entire country? They have certainly a small...
Yeah, that's right. There's only 100 Proud Boys. This guy knows nothing about right-wing militias. Yeah, there's only 100 Proud Boys in the whole country. There's only 100. There's, you know, maybe 200 total. If you count all the right-wing militias, so maybe like 200 tops. What? Does he actually think that? Is he that dumb?
Small minority of that crowd that, you know, that you could get 100 of them, a couple hundred of them to storm the Capitol, along with several hundred, you know, hangers-on, chanting slogans and taking selfies. I think that what that proves is that your army is pathetic. It's nothing. They have we're talking about, if you want to talk about an insurrection and take words seriously, what you mean is an attempt to overthrow the best armed, most powerful state that has ever existed in any country in the history of the human race. And you're saying that a total force in the entire country of a few hundred people, that's an army that counts for anything against the most powerful military that's ever existed?
You have people in the military, in the police, in the Capitol who were sympathetic to the people who stormed the Capitol. It's not just 20 agitators. You had
cops, members of the military, are white nationalists. This has been documented since the early 2000s. And historically, it's been proven since again, the police started as slave patrols. Right, these motherfuckers had guns. They used the government IDs to access parts of the Capitol that they weren't supposed to and let other people in. Are we going to forget that? Also, what about the bombs?
People who were for that. You had an entire propaganda arm, Fox News, which was trivializing those events, who said we have to understand where their rage is coming from. You have, I would say, about you have an entire political party in Washington, D.C., who's saying it was nothing. They were tourists. They didn't do any damage.
Notice that how far you've dragged the goalposts across the field here. Because first you were talking about, he has this army, and then I pointed out that the army is almost unimaginably pathetic.
Max, can you believe this? Max, get up here. This fucking dog, folks. Can you believe this shit, Max? Is this possible for you to even fathom? Now, I want to say, and I want to end it here for now, and I'll cover the rest tomorrow morning. I have been the victim of right-wing militia violence, right? I know people who have been the victims of right-wing militia violence. Right-wingers have infiltrated law enforcement and the military. This has been well documented. If Ben Burgess doesn't know that, maybe he should read more. So for him to say that there's no such thing as right-wing militias and the ones that do exist are pathetic, you're wrong. They planted bombs, bro. You know what a lot of right-wing militias are? Ex-military. People that have military experience and knowledge and use that knowledge and experience in order to do covert operations, okay? Look at all the people that still have yet to be identified. The people who planted the bombs have not been captured, have not been caught. Look how many unidentified people went into the Capitol and left the Capitol and remain unidentified to this day. There are lots of these motherfuckers who are ex-military, well-trained motherfuckers, and they know what the hell they're doing. For him to say, it's just a bunch of boomers, bruh. Just the boomers. And for him to say Fox News and the former president building an army of right-wing radicals doesn't matter, because it's just the boomers. This is ridiculous. Anyway, I am so fucking hungry, and this is my first 2-hour show in a long time, so I am going to see y'all later. I will cover the rest of this tomorrow. I mean, there's like an additional 20 minutes, so I'll try to get through it tomorrow. It'll probably take me 3 hours, but tomorrow I will try my best. I am going to have a good one now and eat and cry myself to sleep, because can you imagine? I spent money on this. Actually, no, I didn't. But either way, it doesn't matter, because it's in my possession. It's taking up space in my room, and that's going to change very soon. So anyway, thank you all for watching. I will go eat food now. I will see y'all later. Y'all have a good one. Good motherfucking bye.
against the worst candidate in the history of presidential politics puts pressure on me. Could you imagine if I lose my whole life? What am I going to do? I'm going to say, I lost to the worst candidate in the history of politics. I'm not going to feel so good. Maybe I'll have to leave the country. I don't
know. Originally, the idea had come up of me debating somebody else on this topic, and that didn't end up happening. The idea had come up of me debating somebody else on this topic, and that didn't end up happening. But of me debating somebody else on this topic, and that didn't end up happening. Originally, the idea had come up of me debating somebody else on this topic, and that didn't end up happening. But yeah, this actually,
dumb people, liberal people can have dumb people, liberal people, dumb people, dumb people, dumb people, liberal people.
No good, really bad for you.
All of a sudden, we can't talk about Neanderthal DNA anymore.
Isn't it wonderful to allow protesting? No.
Early in the morning, they went to the table with the black robe, the black shield, and they pulled out the vote.
Everybody comes in your grandmother, They weren't coming because they couldn't get in. Once they think they can get in, they're coming, and they are coming at levels that you haven't even seen yet. Unbelievable.